Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Imagine that a rude and drunken customer comes to your restaurant. That's exactly what our OP encountered. But wait, there's a little revenge in the end, because stealing things in a restaurant and trying to escape is always a bad idea. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Subtle sabotage. Those of you who work food after 2 a.m. know what the worst of humanity is like. I work at a Thai restaurant open until 4 a.m. every Friday and Saturday. It's a hot spot for the downtown area bar-goers. Tonight I work front of house, and amongst the few hundred people I served, one stands out. Let's call him Kung Pao Douche. Now, Katie wants to order the Kung Pao chicken, a dish only available during dinner, 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. He drunkenly slurs over each word. I inform him that the dish is unavailable. What else you got? He grumbles. The pad thai's pretty kick butt here. Want to try that? It's rice noodles and a sweet sauce, I return. Yeah, I'll take one of those. Fast forward 20 minutes. Katie brings his plate up to my counter. Where's my effing Kung Pao? He drools. I tell him, you didn't order that, man. I told you when you ordered we don't have that. Well, I was lied to. I want a refund right now. You told me I got the Kung Pao. I'm not refunding you. You ordered food and it's sitting right in front of you. No one else gets free food here. Now, I work in a job where we deal with a lot of crap, and I mean a lot of crap. We don't back down and cower behind the manager when things get dicey, and if my manager has to get involved, he backs up the employees 100% of the way. So I spent the next 15 minutes, I crap you not, essentially repeating the above lines of dialogue to this man over and over, while the other servers and one of the cooks chime in as well, supporting my case. For some reason, he also occasionally spurts out completely unnecessary racism. Eventually, after we pretty much told him to take his food and pee off, he grunts in exasperation, grabs cordless phone off of our counter, and dashes outside into a taxi. Another customer chases him down, and me and the much more intimidating dishwasher chase him out to the taxi, grabbing him by the cuff of his jacket and telling him to give us the effing phone before he spends the night in jail. The dishwasher gets a hand in his pocket and pulls out one brand new iPhone 6. Not ours, but good collateral. Unfortunately, KD takes advantage of our momentary distraction as we decide how we're going to deal with this guy. He hops in another taxi, and for whatever godforsaken reason, the taxi driver drives off with him. Now here comes the revenge. We have him on camera stealing from us. We have his phone, so he has to come back. We will gladly make a trade with him when he comes in tomorrow, a little more sober. If he wants to make a fit about it, we can just press charges. In the meantime, I've taken it upon myself to play with a few of his keyboard shortcuts before my manager puts the phone in the safe. Most people don't even know this is possible, so he likely won't have any clue what's happening. First, I started with something mildly infuriating. Every time he types "and," autocorrect will turn it into "ADN." Then something a little more fun. Bye becomes #420. Whenever he types "thanks," it'll change to "penis." A few more phrases were quickly added to the library. I'd gotten my revenge, and he'll spend the next few weeks confused as F whenever he types certain phrases. Oh yeah, one more thing. Siri, call me Kung Pao Douchebag from now on. Then I powered it down and handed it over to my boss. Edit. Sounds like the cabbie found the phone in his car after the guy tried to ditch it. Out of the goodness of his heart, he drove it back to us. Still no word of our douchebag. I imagine he'll be sleeping it off most of today. And our second story. The time I refused a 150-pound sale to an arrogant customer. When I first started working, I was 16. Here in the UK, we have a policy called Think 25, which means that we ID anybody buying an age-restricted item if they look under 25 years old. On top of this, if the cashier is under 18, they need to ask permission from a colleague who's over 18 in order to sell an age-restricted product. For 16-year-old me, this was a big faff for 2 years. Additionally, I worked in a big supermarket which sensibly takes age restrictions very seriously. Every time a customer tried to buy a Think 25 item, like alcohol, I had to turn to the person behind me and ask for permission. This provoked a constant stream of jokes from customers, which I'm sure they believed I'd never heard before. Oh, I haven't been mistaken for a youngster in years. I'm so flattered, etc., etc. It wore thin quickly, but I always laughed and explained it was just because I was under 18. Until one day, when a man in his 50s came to my till. He was with a much younger woman, not judging, just explaining, and kept bragging to me and her about his purchases. He also laughed when I offered to pack his bag and said, obviously, in a condescending tone. I was alone on the tills as it was late, and so I buzzed for a supervisor to come over and allow me to sell him alcohol. I'd find out later that she'd served him before, and that he was incredibly rude and condescending to her as well. Since this man was clearly over 25, I continued to scan his items whilst I waited for the supervisor. He continued to brag, telling the woman that nobody who worked in the store could afford what he was buying. She looked embarrassed, but I kept my head down and ignored the provocation. Finally, with about 6 bottles of wine left to scan and bag, my supervisor appeared. She looked him up and down. Yup, she said, you can sell, and turned to walk away. The man laughed. Oh, am I being ID'd? He asked me in a patronizing tone. My supervisor, who was about 10 hours into her shift and never had time for anyone's crap anyway, turned back around. I said my usual, oh no, I'm just under 18, etc., bit, but this man would not give up. I'm flattered. Aren't you going to ID me then? He nudged the lady beside him and winked. Okay, I said, can I see some ID, please? I was actually figuring I would just humor him, and then he'd be happy and leave. Instead, he looked quite taken aback. He stammered a bit, patting his pockets. I don't have it on me, he told me. I never get ID'd, so... I looked at my supervisor, who had this incredibly smug look on her face. She walked back over to us and said, I'm sorry, sir. Once we've asked for ID, it's company policy that we cannot complete the transaction until we've seen proof that you are over 18. You can hold your items here until you can provide it. The man went bright red and asked if the woman's ID would be enough, but it wasn't. We lost about 150 pounds in sales, but for my supervisor and I, both who knew the huge turnover our store saw each day would not be impacted. It was one huge victory, and it kept me going through every mind-numbing age-restricted transaction until I finally turned 18 and could sell it myself. It felt incredibly petty, but at the end of the day, the man asked to be ID'd, and for once, I really was just doing my job. And our last story. Mom begs for money despite buying new house and car. A little backstory. My mom, who's on SSDI, top tier, almost $2,800 a month, has a very hard time budgeting. Last year, she decided to sell my grandparents' house on Southern Oregon to move back to Seattle area. She got the house by having my grandma with dementia change the will and cut out her 2 siblings, my uncle and aunt. And after my grandma passed the house and all the savings/belongings went to my mom. So she sells the house, and instead of buying a reasonable home, she has limited mobility and a bad prescription drug addiction and falls often, she buys herself and her 3 cats a 4,000 square foot home in a gated community. There was literally no money left over from the sell/acquisition of new home. I had to help by paying for a moving van and helpers. Before this, she had a settlement from a slip-fall lawsuit of roughly $50K, which she instantly rolls into a brand new 2018 Toyota Highlander. She'd been left my grandma's 2009 Aspen SUV, but the gas mileage was not good enough. Then she backs into a tree and busts a taillight on the new car a few months after buying it, goes to the dealership to fix taillight, decides she needs a brand new 2019 fully loaded Highlander with a tow package, which she has nothing to tow, so this is a mystery. She trades in her 2018 with 5K miles on it and takes out a 35K car loan, and this is on a fixed income, and she always has money struggles. So here's like 80K of car at this point. Excellent. She's constantly begging my bro, sis, and I for money. We are 38, bro, 36, me, 27, sis, and all trying to establish ourselves and our lives, careers, and financial security. I'm a stay-at-home mom with 2 young kids. We live off my husband's income as an apprentice tradesman and have to be very frugal. We qualify to live in low-income housing, and I find ways to be resourceful, like donating our time and vehicle to help a local food bank so we're able to get some food as well as help the community. We don't own a home or brand new fancy cars, and if you take away rent and do the math for us, just 2 adults, we live on less than her monthly SSDI. Yet every month, she has a sad story about how she can't afford X or Y. She finally canceled her $175 a month TV plan. I've asked her more times than I can count to please not bring up money matters with me. I've offered to help her budget, but she refuses the help. Only wants money. Well, she brought up the money the other day when she came up to our apartment to visit the grandkids, but really she came up to pilfer the food bank transportation we do every Sunday before we drop at food bank, saying she didn't have enough dollars to pick up her prescriptions. This is just after she told me she gets her prescriptions in the mail. I told her I could spare $15 for gas money, but that was all. I explained we're a family of 4 living on 1 income and we have a tight budget. I remind her she's had plenty of opportunity to save or spend her money more wisely, so she takes the $15 and goes. I get a call the next day of her crying, saying that the way I brought up her poor money choices was terribly upsetting, pretty much making me out to be the villain and her the victim. This self-victimizing routine is her go-to. It's exhausting because I've done so much for her. I put my life on hold for 5 years after college to be her full-time caretaker. She fell and needed a hip replacement. I couldn't hold down a job or any healthy relationships because I was constantly being called back home to get this or that for her, take her to the doctor appointments, etc. I could literally write a novel in all the ways I've helped her. I feel like this post is a novella anyways. Screw her for trying to make me out to be the bad guy because I don't give her money. Screw her for even putting it out there and begging my family for money when she has so much. And lastly, screw her for never respecting my boundaries, which I need to preserve my well-being. After her sob story phone call, I was upset. It took me a few hours to get my head on straight. I wasn't a good mom to my kids at that time. So to be a better mom to my kids, I'm putting my mom in timeout. I need a break from her entitled self. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.